Hi guys, welcome back. It's Thanksgiving weekend here, so I'm really busy and I just don't have time to make a full painting video. So instead, in the spirit of the holiday, I thought I'd talk about some things that I'm thankful for. But this is going to be the miniature painting edition of things that I'm thankful for. Because I think in the hobby, there's so many sort of things that we take for granted now that weren't possible or we really didn't have 5, 10, 20 years ago that makes everything so much better and so much easier. And I think we need to really kind of pause now and then and take a little time to appreciate those things. So the first thing I'm really thankful for should come as a surprise to nobody who watches my channel, and that is my wonderful Winsor & Newton Series 7 watercolor brushes. I mean, sure, I can paint models with a lot cheaper brushes and still probably get good results, but it's so much nicer to use good tools. They're pleasant to work with. It just makes the whole process a lot more enjoyable. And it's true there have been expensive watercolor brushes out there for a really long time, but it wasn't really until fairly recently that miniature painters discovered that these watercolor brushes were really great for working on small models too. And that leads into the other thing I'm really thankful for, and that's the paints that we have these days. For a really long time in the miniature painting hobby, everything was pretty much done in enamel or oil paint in case you forget, or maybe you weren't around when that was the case. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with oil paint and enamel. You can get really good results with it, but it's messy and slow drying and intimidating for beginners. So I'm really glad that we at least have that choice now to use acrylics. And the acrylic manufacturers just keep making better and better paints and creating more and more options, more and more colors. So we've got, harder wearing, more durable paint with more pigment coming out all the time, good quality metallic paint, and that's a pretty recent development, quite honestly, because even a few years ago metallic paints were all pretty much terrible, and now you've got some ranges that really do a great job and make painting metal surfaces so much better than it used to be. And okay, and this is a little bit of a weird personal one for me, but I am, and I know I'm not the only one, I do lick my brush quite a bit when I'm painting, and the recent range of Vallejo paints, they've kind of changed up the formula, so there's this slight sort of jelly bean smell and flavor actually to the paint. I'm sure it's not on purpose, but that's how I experience it, and it makes licking the brush so much more pleasant when, you've got a fairly, palatable taste as opposed to some paints which are so bad they make you want to gag. Another thing I'm really thankful for is just how many figures are available to us to paint these days. I mean, no matter what genre or scale or style of figure you're into, there's something there for everybody, and that's really amazing. It means more people want to be in the hobby. It gives us more choice, more ways to get inspired. And remember, again, this wasn't always true. When this hobby was in its infancy, there was very, very little choice in what you had to paint that sort of was standard out of the box, and a lot of stuff you had to kind of make or modify yourself. But now you have almost unlimited choices, and you've got things like fairly affordable 3D imaging software and 3D printers that make it easier and easier for people to create new models, even if they're maybe not amazing sculptors, and stuff like Kickstarter, which allow people to fund and produce a lot more sort of maybe weird, unusual ideas that just wouldn't have ever seen the light of day otherwise. And so, we really have to remember we're living in, I think, a golden age as far as like variety of figures is concerned. And on that note, the quality of miniatures has really gone up a tremendous amount, and that's stuff just like, even maybe 5, 10 years ago when I started painting, it was pretty normal to have to clean up a lot of sprue off your models. There were a lot of mold lines and stuff that had to be smoothed off and reworked. and pieces maybe that were sloppy and had to be joined together really carefully with filler putty and all that stuff. And it does still happen that you have all those sort of quality concerns, but it's so much less. I just feel like these days a lot of the models, I just open them up and they fit together perfectly out of the box, or there's almost nothing you need to do to them, and that's really great. And then just the miniatures being produced are so exquisite. Anyway, you've got these really incredible sculptors in the hobby now producing work like you just never saw before. When things started out, model painting kind of, really took off in the 60s and 70s, I guess. A lot of the figures back then were really crude. I was looking at an old book from the 70s, and there were some of the sculpting you see in there. Nobody would buy stuff like that anymore. It's just so crude and childish looking. So we really have to appreciate just sort of the amazing talent we have now and the amazing artistry. And then I'm grateful for plastics too. That's a fairly new thing. I mean, yeah, there have been plastics around for a little while now, but it's only really in the last few years that you're starting to see this really amazing quality from them in terms of the details and the sculpting. So you're getting these really good figures now that are really, really cheap, tons of models for a low price, that are really easy for you to customize. So if you want to make your own sort of adaptations and stuff with plastic, that's really something that anybody can do. It's not like the days where you were dealing with metal, where, sort of cutting apart figures and reposing them and stuff was so much more trouble. Now with plastics, you got your arms and legs and every part of the body is separate. So it's so much easier to just put together totally new things. And so that is something that I think has really just opened up a lot of creativity in the hobby for a lot of people. The next thing I'm grateful for is going to be kind of controversial, and that's Games Workshop. And yeah, I know a lot of people love them, a lot of people hate them, and there's good reasons on both sides. But you got to realize that single-handedly they've probably done more than just about anybody to popularize not just wargaming, but to really drive up the standards of miniature painting and miniature sculpting in a way that, just wasn't happening before. So, and I know as far as improving the sculpting and painting quality and stuff and driving up those standards, I know some people don't appreciate that at all. They really wish that they find that overwhelming and stuff. But for me as a painter, that's what I want to see. I want to be inspired. I want to have these really awesome examples to make me want to paint and to try harder and, improve and everything. And beyond that, their efforts have brought so many people into the hobby that I don't think probably would have gotten into it before. And a lot of those people then gone on to do other stuff, to do all these cool and creative things, and just generally improve the sort of general community around miniature painting and wargaming, and you have to sort of give credit to that and be really grateful that that they have kind of facilitated that sort of whole growth and explosion in the hobby. So my final thing that I'm grateful for today is really you guys. If you weren't around watching these videos in the numbers that you were, I probably wouldn't be making them. And I really also appreciate your feedback, your support, your encouragement. It really makes me, want to keep going. And I get a lot of, warm, fuzzy feelings out of having, so many people who seem to like watching me paint. So a really great big thank you for that, for sure. So those are just a few of the things I'm grateful for as far as miniature painting is concerned. I'm sure if I had more time, I could come up with a lot more, and I bet you guys actually have quite a few things you're grateful for as well. So if you do, let me know in the comments below. Maybe you can raise some points for us all to think about, things we should be happy and thankful about and mindful of when we're, working on our models. So that's all for now, and I'll see you next time.